I love Kingdom Hearts music, but some of it has got to go. We're coming up on 14 games in the series, and as much as I can appreciate hearing the classics, there are certain songs that I think should be left behind as we head into the Lost Masters arc. One of the key strengths of Kingdom Hearts' musical storytelling is the way that existing tracks are reused in future games, but that means the music team has to be careful about what they pick. I generally believe that almost any song can be reused to great effect if the new game has a fitting scenario. Even tracks that are only played for a single cutscene, boss battle, or minigame can find new life decades later, and I'll be cheering them on. But the songs we're going to discuss today are different. There are some tracks that were implemented so perfectly in the first arc that any reuse would only devalue their existing appearances. There's some tracks with a confused and directionless legacy that would only bring down any future games that used them. And there are some tracks that have been played to death, recompleted, and played to death again. In my opinion, it's time to thank these songs for their service and send them on a long holiday. It was fun while it lasted, but we cannot be taking this musical baggage with us into Kingdom Hearts 4. Where better to start than with the poster child for overused songs, Rowdy Rumble? It suffers from two problems, number one being a lack of purpose. Ideally, when we hear an old song in a new game, we should be able to use our knowledge of how the track was used in the past to infer something about the present. Maybe it's as simple as, this song was played in sad moments, and right now we are sad, but the narrative purpose of Rowdy Rumble is all over the place. When it was introduced in KH2, it was a theme for boss battles and scripted encounters that had some sort of gimmick. Set to foes like Pete, the Halloween Town Brats, and the Hyenas, it's clear that we aren't taking our opponents seriously. Days reinforced this meaning, using it for fights against Pete, Zigbar, Gimmick Heartless like the Deserter and Emerald Serenade, and the Break the Jars missions. No problems here. The cracks started to show when Birth by Sleep treated Rowdy Rumble as a generic event theme, using it 11 different times. Unversed mob fights, start of world battles, and even intense moments like Aqua's escape from Maleficent's castle. The context of the song is getting a bit murkier. Recoded and Dream Drop tried to course correct by using it exclusively for Pete, but any distinct purpose Rowdy Rumble might have regained was slaughtered by Union Cross and Dark Road, which use it for the target battle of every quest. This means that the last fight of every single quest for 7 years of games was set to the tune of Rowdy Rumble. The only exceptions were bosses, but even then, there are some serious, intimidating, and story-significant Heartless that use this childish battle theme. When the Shadow in Quest 13 uses the same battle track as the Guard Armor Omega in Quest 850, the song loses all meaning. Which brings us to the second problem with Rowdy Rumble. It's used everywhere. There are thousands of quests in Union Cross, and all roads lead to Rowdy Rumble. I thought it might have died down after KH3, where it appears only once for the Chaos Carriage, or Dark Road drove this track even further into the ground. Given that I've heard enough Rowdy Rumble to fill 14 lifetimes, I have no desire to see it return in KH4 or beyond. And given that its implementation has been doled down to any battle of any caliber, there's little to be gained from bringing it back. In any potential fight, I would rather have a track with a more well-defined use case. The only argument I can see for Rowdy Rumble's return is as a Pete boss theme, since it has been used to score his fights in 4 different games. However, I'm against this from a narrative standpoint. Pete has already outgrown the track. He uses it for most of his KH2 battles, yes, but the final showdown in Timeless River uses Desire for All That Is Lost, a more serious theme telling the player that playtime is over. This is a personal battle for Pete, fighting for a past he can't return to. In the games that followed, every other Pete fight with Rowdy Rumble is either set in the past or recoded. If we were to fight Pete in the modern day, it wouldn't feel right to revert Pete back to his most useless state. I would far prefer a personalized battle theme, or at least something that isn't shared with thousands of random Heartless. Rowdy Rumble needs to retire. Peaceful Hearts is a song used for happy endings in Disney worlds. It was first used in Birth by Sleep for the Princess worlds, and it was brought back for 2 cutscenes each in Dream Drop Distance and Unchained Key. It's a beautiful composition, quite underrated in my opinion, and it was implemented perfectly thus far. Things changed in 2016, when the Castle of Dreams was added to the newly rebranded Union Cross. For some reason, likely not wanting to expend the resources to secure Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, the field theme was changed to Peaceful Hearts. I don't really have a problem with this. If licensing the original field theme was an issue, this is the best substitute I can think of on the BBS soundtrack. However, because of this change, Peaceful Hearts has no place in the future of the series. It is now forever tied to Castle of Dreams, so it no longer fits its original purpose as a generic happy ending theme. There are plenty of tracks that serve the same role and aren't bound by a specific world. A Piece of Peace, La Pace, Ever After, Little Lovely Moments. To use Peaceful Hearts over any of these other options would be a huge misstep. Thankfully, the music implementation team seems to agree. Since it began use as the field theme of Castle of Dreams, the track has not played for generic peaceful resolutions. So, barring the unlikely case that Castle of Dreams returns as a future world, Peaceful Hearts is best left behind in Union Cross. Shrouding Dark Cloud is an iconic boss theme, but much like Rowdy Rumble, it has been overplayed to Hades and back. Once upon a time, it was associated with early game Heartless bosses, but that affiliation has completely eroded since KH1. It has been used for random mob fights, gimmick encounters, raid bosses, Disney bosses, and so much more. In Birth by Sleep, it was the battle theme of the Mirage Arena and the multiplayer versus Keyblade Graveyard. In Kingdom Hearts 3, it was the theme of the Beat of Lead minigame. I'll admit that that was a very inspired choice. But the point is, Shrouding Dark Cloud has become a generic theme for any battle that doesn't have anything else going on. It doesn't have any clear purpose in its modern state. There are other underused tracks with much stronger associations that would be more suited for basically any scenario where Shrouding Dark Cloud might be employed. I could see an argument for future Gigas-related uses, but if they are an important part of this next saga, then they should develop their own musical identity rather than pile another layer onto the confused lineage of Shrouding Dark Cloud. It served us well, but it's time for this track to go. I can't believe I'm killing two beloved classics in a row, but listen, Rage Awakened has been used to absolute perfection. It's a song with a very clear narrative purpose. It represents the personal conflict between Terra and Master Xehanort. Rage Awakened carries this storyline from beginning to end, used 3 times. First for the Lingering Will in KH2FM, then for when the player controls the Lingering Will against Terra Xehanort, and finally for when the Lingering Will returns to fight Terranort in KH3. Then, the melody of Rage Awakened was reshaped into Dawn of Hope for the last confrontation with Terra Xehanort, where Terra finally puts an end to his captor and takes back his body. It's perfect from beginning to end. Well, it would be if that's where it ended. 2 songs in the final KH3 boss gauntlet, Critical Crossroad and Dark Domination, also use the melody of Rage Awakened. To me, this represents a fundamental misunderstanding of the narrative function of the track, and its sloppy implementation, literally copy-pasted from the Kingdom Hearts 2 MIDI, is an insult to the perfect conclusion we heard an hour earlier. And, I might have lied when I said I wasn't going to complain about Ishimoto in this video. Regardless, the narrative arc of Rage Awakened has concluded. Terra has regained his will and resolved his decades-long conflict with Master Xehanort. The music has served its purpose, and any further use would only be a cheap play at nostalgia that would devalue its existing connotations. I can't erase Rage Awakened from Ishimoto's endgame compositions, but I can confidently say that it has no business returning in future Kingdom Hearts games. Olympus Coliseum has served as the field theme of the Hercules world time and time again, but I'm specifically aiming to retire the KH1 arrangement. This is the song that evolves with the world. The original structure was used in KH1, KH1 derivatives, and prequels. Since then, the world has changed and the music with it. The Olympus Coliseum themes in Kingdom Hearts 2 have an added B section, which doesn't just sound great, but coincides with the evolution of the world. Kingdom Hearts 3 also has a new arrangement, and while it tragically ditches the KH2 B section, it is still majorly transformative. At this point in the story, there should be no reason to revert to the original KH1 field theme or any arrangement like it. Also, let's be real, we've heard a lot of this song. Too much of this song, I'd argue. With the characters of Olympus primed to appear in Kingdom Hearts 4, I would be greatly disheartened to hear the original Olympus Coliseum field theme for the sake of musical fatigue in addition to narrative arguments. I'm just a little bit sick of it, and KH3 has shown that the music team is more than capable of reworking the melody into fresh new compositions. Dual Hearts should never return because it should never have been heard the first time. I spent plenty of time explaining why this is my least favorite composition in the Kingdom Hearts series, but I'm listing it here more as a conduit for Vanitas themes as a whole. With Remind and Dark Road, the series has taken a renewed interest in Vanitas as manifestation of one of the original 13 Darknesses. If he does return, I pray he doesn't take his music with him. Here's my reasoning. Dual Hearts and Enter the Darkness Kingdom Hearts 3 version are compositionally flawed tracks. Wrong notes, mismatched chords, broken loops, and so much more. Because KH3 had an infamously turbulent development cycle, I can understand, though not forgive, having these messy and unfinished tracks in the game. But there is no excuse to carry these mistakes into the Lost Masters arc. And it would be poor form to reuse the Birth by Sleep originals, since they've already been replaced by the Kingdom Hearts 3 arrangements, as unpolished as those might have been. Simply put, I believe that there are no Vanitas themes fit to be carried over into the next game. While the melody of Enter the Darkness and Dual Hearts would be welcome in a new composition, the pieces themselves should be put to rest. Before I make the case for the final song on my list, I want to discuss 3 tracks that I consider endangered. These tracks are on the edge of existence. They should probably be sent to the retirement home, but there's a sliver of potential still in there. For each song, there's one thing holding me back from ditching it entirely. If approached with extreme caution, KH4 could leverage one of these endangered songs to great effect, but one misstep would make these tracks just as bad as the others we discussed. Destiny's Force is a track that is being pulled in many different directions. It first appeared as the boss theme of the Dark Side, a role that was reprised in Days, Recoded, and 0.2. KH1 also used it as a generic boss theme for strong enemies, typically those that had some sort of transformation, like the Opposite Armor, Genie Jafar, and Oogie's Manor. This vague Disney and Heartless association is kept in Birth by Sleep for the Hades and Ice Colossus battle, Union Cross for various raid battles, and Dark Road for the Fairy and Furious Reaper bosses. Sometimes, Destiny's Force serves neither purpose, like when Dream Drop Distance played it for the Dream Eater mob fight in the circus trampolines, or when Days used it for Zigbar and Shion in Wonderland. The nail in the coffin is the original Kingdom Hearts key, which played Destiny's Force for the target enemy of every mission. This is the same thing that killed Rowdy Rumble in the mobile remake, only I honestly hate this more. Whereas Rowdy Rumble is upbeat and has been used for many minor encounters before, Destiny's Force historically makes more of an effort to restrict itself to powerful foes, making it just way more jarring to hear for the random shadow that happens to be the target enemy. Destiny's Force can't decide if it wants to be a Pure Blood Heartless theme, a Disney boss theme, a second phase Heartless boss theme, a mob fight theme, or just a generic enemy battle theme. The only reason I'm not calling for its retirement is the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer. If that gnarly Dark Side evolution uses a fresh new arrangement of Destiny's Force, thus calling back to the battle on the storm-tossed island 24 years ago, I would be ecstatic. But barring that one specific use case, I would rather not hear Destiny's Force again. From one Destiny to another, we have Destiny's Union. I used to love this track, but it's been having something of an identity crisis since Birth by Sleep. It was introduced in BBS to score scenes that focused on the Wayfinder trio's relationship. Terra, Aqua, and Ventus each had their own song, but Destiny's Union belonged to all 3 of them. 0.2 used it for the same purpose, and the reunion in KH3 is set to a new arrangement of the piece titled Chains to Bonds. Even Melody of Memory represents the Wayfinder trio with Destiny's Union when they appear on the main menu. Unfortunately, Dream Drop Distance decided to use Destiny's Union for any scene that involves bonds or friendship, like Rinsler reaching for Sora's hand. Up until this point, the track had been used to represent a specific bond among 3 specific friends. DDD threw that out the window. Kingdom Hearts 3 decided to fix this by playing Destiny's Union for scenes of young Xehanort and Ericus, which Dark Road copied. So now the track is representing Odin's pupils, while still being used for its original purpose to represent the Wayfinder trio in the same game. They're going for a parallel between Master and Student, so I'm almost fine with accepting its use here, but KH3 just can't keep its story straight, since it turns around and uses Destiny's Union for random moments like Woody's confrontation with young Xehanort. Every time the track plays for characters other than our young Keyblade wielders, it devalues its original meaning and makes it feel less special. Destiny's Union went from a strong representation of a core set of characters to a generic and overused theme of friendship. That's why I've had enough of this track. If the series keeps on its current course, Destiny's Union will stay as a generic event theme, which will be a shame. If KH4 uses the track for the Wayfinder trio, and only the Wayfinder trio, then I will accept its return. Otherwise, this track is just a shadow of its former self that deserves to be put out of its misery. Strange Whispers is the theme of Bad Tidings. The KH series has tons of these unsettling event tracks, but each serves a specific purpose. Villains of a Sort is for Disney villains, 13th Discretion is for Castle Oblivion organization members, Disquieting is for the rest of the castle and related business, and The Nightmare is for dream-related mishaps. If none of those apply, then the scene will use Broken Reality, Hesitation, or Shaded Truths, depending on how immediate the danger is. But why go through all that trouble? If there's anything even remotely evil happening on screen, just throw in Strange Whispers and call it a day. This track is heavily campaigning for the Most Overused award, and is neck and neck with Rowdy Rumble for the crown. These two are tied for appearing in the greatest number of worlds, 34 each using the Heed to the Pulse Sudoku groupings. 1 out of every 11 Union Cross cutscenes uses Strange Whispers. So if Strange Whispers is the epitome of overplayed and shares real estate with a dozen other Darkness themes that all have stronger narrative functions, then why keep it around at all? To explain that, I'm going to have to talk a little bit about Ace Attorney. The first Ace Attorney game introduced a song called Suspense. It served a similar role as Strange Whispers, playing when something goes wrong or the opponent has the upper hand. And was it ever overused, let me tell you. Not a case went by without hearing the track several times, and perhaps several more. Suspense was brought back for the sequel, and its sequel, and wait a minute, it became the only track with perfect attendance among the sprite-based games. And when the series switched to 3D models and streamed audio, Suspense was re-recorded with virtually no structural changes and used just as much. As if being overplayed wasn't enough, the song is just a single note. An iconic single note, sure, but that's no excuse. It's all constant use across 15 years of games, and I really wish it would stop. But the point is, Suspense was completely saved by Yasumasa Kitagawa, main composer of the Great Ace Attorney subseries and the Professor Layton crossover. In these 3 games, he created 4 different suspense themes that each blew the original out of the water. Some of them were directly based on the original, while with others he took more liberty in the composition, but all of them were a breath of fresh air. See, this is what a series can do when it doesn't insist on using the same song from 2001 for the 300th time. When it acknowledges that, you know what, maybe that song that was composed for the Game Boy Advance could do with a rewrite. And not just higher fidelity, but actual interesting changes. This is the same approach that Kingdom Hearts 3 took when it came to Strange Whispers. Although overlooked for the soundtrack, the 3 new arrangements, plus a 4th in Melmem, are exactly what this old track needed.
This world will be engulfed in darkness. Everything you care about, and everyone you love.
I have some trepidations, as the overused 1.5 recording still found its way into KH3 on 2 occasions. But if the series doubles down on these fresh arrangements, then I'm okay with Strange Whispers sticking around a bit longer. I'd still rather one of the other Darkness tracks for variety's sake, but if none of them fit, then the eternally generic Strange Whispers is a fine substitute as long as we avoid musical fatigue from hearing the same arrangement over and over. And, much like Suspense was to the Ace Attorney franchise, Strange Whispers is something of a staple in KH, so I don't see it going away anytime soon. But if it's going to stick around, please let it have some variety in its arrangements. Sinister Sundown is my personal addition to the list. Yes, I know I'm the one who made the whole list, but the other songs I could back up with some presentable examples or narrative analysis. This one is just pure emotions. I am sick and tired of Sinister Sundown. Now, from a musical perspective, I quite enjoyed the song. At the bare minimum, it's a solid B tier, and it's sonically pleasant to listen to. It's not like I can call it overused either, since it only has 4 games under its belt, one of which is just the obligatory Melody of Memory level. But I don't know, man. Maybe it's just the subtly grating strings on the DS version slowly driving me mad as I wade through 24 Twilight Town missions, or maybe it's the even more compressed DS arrangement for Magical Puzzle Clash quickly driving me mad as I endure multiple hours of that abomination, but something about Sinister Sundown just doesn't sit right with me anymore. I can't say I ever expect it to return in future games, and I wouldn't be upset to see it get the KH3 treatment like with Sora's Twilight Town themes, but I've heard enough Sinister Sundown to last me for another 2 story arcs. Those are the 10 Kingdom Hearts songs that I never want to hear again. They're not my 10 least favorite songs, I only mentioned Ishimoto twice, but they represent a growing challenge with the Kingdom Hearts series' musical implementation. Misuse or overuse can rob a track of narrative weight and retroactively cheapen its original appearances. The first phase of the Kingdom Hearts series has set an incredibly high bar for musical storytelling, and the upcoming arc will have to be diligent in its reuse of musical material if it hopes to live up to the reputation. And if that means shelving these 10 tracks, then I say let them rest. Thanks for watching. I'm curious if anyone has any songs they'd like to add to the list, or maybe just something they're sick of hearing. I do love making videos where I can just talk about KH music, but my current track record is awfully negative. Maybe I'll make an inverse of this video about songs I want to see return? We'll see.